Hey folks, just as an update before we get kicked started off here, if you have an AI note taker, it will be removed from the meeting. Um, the state policy on honor AI and things like that are formally that, right? If you want a transcript of this meeting, if you want the recording, we will be posting it via YouTube, right? If for everyone who is on this call, similarly, the transcript will be distributed, right? So we're just going to go through real quick, make sure that there's no additional read AI or any bots on the call, right? And then we will go ahead and get started. So please bear with us for one moment. All right, so just making sure folks are in the right place, right? This is the homelessness diversion for state fiscal year 2025 TA session, right? So we'll go ahead and kick it off, right? And moving on. Right. So today, particularly, right, right, your facilitators will be myself for a little bit, right? Michael Callahan, Director of the Office of Homelessness Prevention. We have Tina McGill, Assistant Director for Operations and Programs. Shahilda Boynes, who is the Program Manager for the Diversion Program, and Matt Horvath, who is one of our lead contracts administrators here in the office on the fiscal and contracting team, right? Today, we will be going over the grant program itself, answering some questions along that. We'll be going over SAGE, right? For so importantly, just kind of foot stomp it a little bit, right? If you are already well versed in SAGE and SAGE-isms and all things fun SAGE, right? You do not have to stick around for that part, even though we strongly suggest that you do, right? And then lastly, we will be taking questions. Importantly, just a level set, right? If you have any questions, we'd really like you to enter them into the chat, right? Shahilda from the programs team will be going ahead and memorializing these questions and making sure that we're answering them in sequence. Simultaneously, right, if at the end of it, for whatever reason, right, you're not able to articulate your question in the chat, or it's a really granular, super nuanced question, right? We will unmute you and then ask you to go for it there. All right. So perfect. And it was similar with the expectation, right? As often happens with these things, some of the questions you might have might be answered in later slides, right? So we'll just go back and double tap to make sure that the question was answered in the slide following when you asked it. But if not, we can just clarify there. All right. So hopefully everybody's good to go, and we can go ahead and kick this off. Right. So importantly, the purpose of our diversion program, right, is to provide assistance to households that are imminent risk of homelessness or households that can be rapidly exited from homelessness in the identified counties below, right? And so importantly, right, the expectation of this, right, is that your primary center of operations when you're deploying these programs are that they primarily serve the counties identified here. Now, that does not mean you cannot serve more on a regional basis, right? But you must get clearance from our office prior to any regional effort. And simultaneously, you must also ensure, right, that you will be able to primarily serve the residents of the counties that you're assigned or the catchment area that you're assigned, right, prior to externalizing out services, right? If you look, the distribution of programs has changed a little bit through here, right? Most importantly, we've added a couple of counties. We've also increased the number of programs in Passaic and also two in Hudson for this go around. Right. As far as eligible entities, right? So for the first time, we are actually opening up, right? Not only our diversion program, not only to nonprofit CBOs, and faith-based organizations, but also to municipalities, right? And that also includes other entities of local government to include county governments, right? And so you must, right, have a footprint of serving those counties identified there. And importantly, if you are applying as a municipal or as a regional shared service basis, or if you are a county government, right, the expectation is the part or the business unit within that entity of government that owns this has at least 3 years of experience successfully operating homelessness prevention, street outreach, diversion, or rapid rehousing programs, right? If you are a first-time applicant, right, to our diversion programs, right, the expectation is that, that if your community-based organization or your faith-based organization really has, strong command over the regular flavor service verticals, right, within homelessness, and that diversion is going to add to those offerings, or, right, you're going to be able to service, a different population using more flexible funding with a more expansive definition of homelessness and risk of homelessness, right? That really speaks to your ability to deliver services, right? Simultaneously, right? Agencies selected, right, and applications that are selected, you must service the entirety of the county, and agencies may collaborate together to provide diversion services. And this means that they need to have an MOU outlining the collaboration of the partnership. Importantly, for those agencies that are banding together to service a region or to look at multiple counties of service, or potentially, right, to split one program award between two entities operating in the same county, our expectation is that you have at least a letter of intent, right, working towards the pure services MOU, right, or you will have an executed MOU that will be amended upon award, if that's the case, to make sure that we have a really good understanding of kind of the delineation and split of services, who's providing what, who's going to be cutting checks, who's going to be the fiscal agent, things like that. Right. Importantly, right, in any type of partnership or collaboration, right, no more than one agency may be selected as the lead agency in a county for a collaborative award, right? And the maximum grant awarded will not exceed the amount above, right? And so what that means is, right, so understanding that, understanding the ceiling for what the award ceiling is right now, right, if you do go on a regional basis, and say, for example, you're going to be going in for Cumberland County as your area, right? Even if you have two entities, right, that are applying jointly, right, to administer the same program in Cumberland County, one entity needs to be identified as the lead agency, and that is the lead agency that should be making the application through SAGE. Thanks. With the applicant profile, right, we really expect, right, the following, right? So we want all applicants to the program and sub-applicants to be able to demonstrate existing homelessness prevention or diversion programs and demonstrable experience in servicing individuals and families experiencing homelessness, and those imminently, those families and households that are imminently homeless, right? We're also looking for your organization, right, to have a diverse compilation of resources and partnerships to support and assist households that are homeless and at risk of homelessness to exit those situations and circumstances. So importantly, right, this is not just, oh, we send folks to 211 to look for the other stuff, right? Or it's, we have a very comprehensive resource directory that, we are not quarterbacking or partnering with in order to engage in housing stabilization, right? But that there's actual formal partnership networks and success stories that have tangible, real outcomes data that is verifiable by checking New Jersey HMIS, or, right, if you're in Middlesex County or Bergen County, right? Although I don't think Bergen's eligible for this one, right? That we're able to validate anything that you say or substantiates via outcomes, right? That also includes, right, your agency might be a CSBG agency, and so that means that it uses Empower, right? We were going to go in and check that Empower that if you say you serve 260 distinct 260,000 distinct people annually, right? That actually lines up to what the actuals are, right? Simultaneously, right, we're looking for substantive feedback from clients and partners, right, and understanding that, hey, right, we just do not call organization X to go fix our homeless problem. We are engaged substantively with organization X to strategically and tactically engage with to eliminate homelessness in our community, right? When we talk about that, really is what differentiates like a really good feedback and partnership letter versus, something that's very much, hey, we're the police department and we show up every time there's an encampment. We just call this agency, right? That's not really a robust description of services. Lastly, right, for those agencies that are really doing some really innovative stuff, right, we want to hear about it, right? That also sets out your application and makes it distinctly different and gives us a solid value add for choosing you, right? And so with your innovative solutions, we want to talk yourselves up, right? I want to hear about how you have a shallow subsidy rent program that, or you have your vision of what operationalized homelessness diversion through with OHP's dollars are supplementing your scattered site shelter and master leasing program, things like that, right? Always happy to entertain that, but also to really understand how you're braiding programs to effectuate homelessness, the ends of homelessness and homelessness that's rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. Right? Similarly, right, we are looking for within the applicant profiles, right, that there's a willingness and capacity to partner with local and county law enforcement. Their service areas correspond to continuum of care, public services, for example, libraries, and regional and local healthcare providers. Right. Similarly, right, you are required to have a publicly affirmed commitment to housing first principles, right? Following this in some of the example, following in some of the when we email this presentation out, and we also email out um, uh, the presentation, we'll re-email out the RFP, we'll email out the questions and the transcript, but then also to, we will be providing you an example housing first resolution, right? Should your board, should you need one in order to go before your board, right? Importantly, right, I cannot overstate this. If your organization affirms housing first principles and executes that resolution, and then that becomes part of your organization and its charter, right? And you are actively working against housing first principles, right? We will engage with our other sister state agencies, right, to address that. Right? I'm just going to be very clear and apparent right now. Similarly, right, we're looking for a commitment to the inclusion and incorporation of feedback from persons with lived experience and expertise, right? This has a bunch of different flavors. It can take a bunch of different ways. One of the things, right, we started socializing this and really putting this out in our grad programs right about 3 years ago. We're going to be pivoting over to being much more prescriptive, right, in future funding opportunities, right? So this is really kind of the last chance to get ducks in a row and really kind of align and make sure that, there's an open feedback loop between the people that you serve, things like board inclusion, stuff like that, right? Um, and similarly, right, all applicants for OHP funding are required to document affirmation of the principles through supplementary materials. And we're going to show you in the stage session of where to upload all of those. Right? So important, right? The total available funding in fiscal year 2025 is 5.35 million, right? This RFP uses state appropriated special purpose funds and also to homelessness prevention funding, right? The maximum amount that will be awarded to a single program in a region is 254,700, and there is a missing period in that, right? But and 90 cents there, right? Understanding that, right? Just to let everybody know, right? Based upon availability of funds, right? This will be a 1 year with a option to renew, right, program. So what that means is we want you to budget your program for 1 year, right? But as stated in the RFP, funds be available in state fiscal year 2027, right? And state fiscal year 2026. We fully plan on amending and then adding additional funds if they are available and if the grantee is performing well, right? To continue, right, for a minimum of an additional year past this, right? So and that's really important there. Similarly, right, you may apply for more than one region and you're encouraged, right, to align regional selection with services provided in the state's 16 continuum of care. Meaning that, right, if you are in one of the regional COCs, right, or if you have a larger footprint beyond that extends over multiple COCs, that you really think about how you can maximize those services there. Right. Here's the initial budget document, right? And so importantly, your admin is capped at 10%, right? We're always happy when folks come in south of 10% for admin, but again, right, that's just the ceiling. That doesn't mean that that's what that looks like. But again, the expectation of, even though there's the potential for this to be a multi-year award, right? We want you to budget the budget that you submit for this application with the expectation that you'll be providing services for 1 year, right? And then we would do an amendment with additional funds, and then we would engage in the budgetary process if we were going to go and extend following a closeout evaluation of your program, right? Your staff salary, right? 1 FTE, right? Importantly, we have no upper limit on staff salary, right? So importantly, right? If one of the things that is really the secret sauce with the diversion program is having a very seasoned, well-versed, high impact diversion specialist that's able to do rapid intensive case management, but also to discern out, okay, right, this person has a likely trajectory, right, of exiting homelessness very rapidly, right, or right, this individual or household, right, is most likely going to need more substantive services, right. One of the other things that we always like to say to everyone that we speak to, right, is we are very much an evangelist of paying your people so you don't have to hire multiple times, right? Staff churn is one of the greatest predictors, right, of an organization underperforming peer organizations, right, in this sector, right? So please pay your people, right, if not what they're worth, and then more than what they're worth, and also too simultaneously, right? If you have the ability, right, to pay for certain fringe items like a 403B, some additional health insurance, like an FSA account, things like that, right? Please apply the fringe to that, right? Do not undershoot on fringe just because of that there might not be there might not be congruence or parallelism between other members of your team, right? With that, right, with operational expenses, right, there's miscellaneous of $1,000 there. When we talk about, some people who have never operated one of our diversion programs before have saying, hey, how do we add the budget line, right, for rental assistance, or we're going to apportion $500 for application fees, or we're going to apportion, $2,000 for buying work boots or something, right? There's one line that you have in your budget for your flexible funds, right? And that is diversion flexible funds. So when we go through Sage, we'll show what that is. You do not need to itemize it because importantly, we do not want you to have to engage in this endless process of budget revisions, right? One of the things about the diversion program is distinctly different than programs like HPP, HPRP, even programs like IHPS that are kind of blended in federal and state funding, right? And that we try to make this program as attractive to you, right? Particularly to operate with the least amount of billing umbrage or challenges, if you will, right? Similarly, there's direct client assistance, right? And so one of the things that we just want to make sure that people understand is flexible fund spends that are made on behalf of a client are distinctly different than direct client assistance, right? Direct client assistance means that you are giving either a gift card to an individual, right, which is cash, right? So it's not that there's cash value. The difference between this is giving somebody a Visa gift card worth $50, that's a cash value of $50, versus if you give them a ShopRite gift card worth $250, right, that you charge to your flex funds because you're actually buying food for somebody with that, right? Lastly, you have up to $1,000 for New Jersey HMIS. One of the things that we will be requiring through all of our programs this year is that if you put in a line for HMIS, right, we require proof of payment, right, to HMFA for those funds. Right. So when we talk about eligible activities, right, the program provides really one component, and that's diversion services, right? And so really particularly, right, we're talking about diverting households that are initially engaged, but either ineligible or inappropriate for services, right, through other means, right? And particularly, right, what we're trying to get here, right, is so folks aren't entering the shelter system, right? So folks aren't necessarily entering into a rapid rehousing program. So folks aren't entering into a really comprehensive eviction diversion program, right? One of those other programs where the level of service based upon their acuity is so high that they need a more comprehensive case management partnership, but also too the housing stabilization is going to take longer, right, than anticipated on average 7 days, right? And simultaneously, right, the intent of every single spend which should be driving what you're doing when you spend flex funds, right, is that by spending these funds and engaging in this intensive case management, right, the homelessness of this household, right, or the recent experience, or the risk of homelessness, the imminence of that homelessness, or the recent experience homelessness is rare, brief in duration, and non-reoccurring, right? And so what this means is, right, is that we do not expect you to use homelessness diversion funds, right, to go and just pair up, right, with additional prevention dollars because it's hit the cap of HPP and it's also hit the cap of CEDD, right? So we're addressing 12 months of rental arrears, right, by braiding funding, and that's going to remove, right, that's going to remove the future risk of homelessness, right? If a household is at risk of homelessness because of 1 year's worth of rental arrears, right, they're most likely not eligible for our diversion program because there's something else going on, right, that has really precipitated 12 months worth of rental arrears, right, and that risk of homelessness. Right. The flip side of that, though, is say you have somebody who lost their job, but they are over income for every other single homelessness prevention program, and they're 2 months in arrears, right? That is an eligible, right? That is an eligible expense to go and pay because at that point, right, and that really differentiates between those two households and kind of the likelihood of future homelessness, right? So when we talk about this with the flexible funding, right, our housing stabilization right assistance, right, it was really spelled out in a document which is our program policy bulletin 2301, right. There's many things which you can actually use it for which are not enumerated here, right, but these are kind of the main buckets that oftentimes what falls into, right. So you could use it for rental assistance no longer than 4 months, utility assistance when they're not eligible for LIHEAP, although based upon that big beautiful bill, right? That Congress just passed an hour ago, right? LIHEAP and USF might no longer exist, and other DCA and other state programs, right? It's also available to address rental and utility arrears, right? Again, you cannot exceed that 4 month cap. Deposits, right? So rent, utility, pet deposit, things like that. Income stabilization. So that means that items and costs related to household income, for example, purchasing a set of steel-toed work boots or non-slip shoes, paying for a car repair, so that an individual um, right. So that all an individual needs is a battery and a new alternator to fix their car. And guess what? They're going to work every day, and that ends their risk of homelessness, right? Or right, there's a mom or a single dad that are very much trying to they work through labor and workforce development or your internal agency program, and they need supplemental assistance for childcare that lets what they're paying go and extend until 6 p.m. so that they can work for that, right? So if you need to pay 3, 4, 5, 6 months of that a delta there for childcare costs, and that's what's going to help stabilize the household and prevent future homelessness, right? There you go, right? Household goods, moving costs. One of the things we kind of want to foot stomp here, right, is that if an individual is a New Jersey Family Care member, right, and being that the New Jersey Family Care Housing Supports Program is going live on July 1, right? If these costs could be paid for through that housing supports program, then you should be using that program, right? And you should not be using your diversion funds to do so just because you might have easier access to disperse them, right? And then this is kind of what our catch-all is. So one option 8, right? Other costs that can be demonstrably linked to the stabilization of housing following a co-created housing stabilization plan and the household's homelessness exit or prevention, right? And so importantly, right, I am very open and our team is very open to entertain any type of spend, right, of your flexible funds that can be demonstrably linked in a causal fashion using a co-created housing stabilization plan where that spend is going to resolve the future risk of homelessness or is going to facilitate the rapid exit of it, right? And then there's some other costs that are enumerated in Program Policy Bulletin 2301, which we'll also send following that, right? And the other part, right, and component of flexible funding is direct client assistance, right? And that's not to exceed $50 in cash value, right? Importantly, this is because of state statute, right? Is that if you are giving a gift card, right, or even $50 in cash, although we actively ask you not to do that, right? If you are doing so with a direct spend of just cash value itself that's not tied to food or not tied to, right, some other spend for some other purpose, right? Anything beyond that, we have to count as income, right? We don't want to put people at risk of getting in trouble with Treasury or anything else like that, right? So for the application process, right? My apologies, Sage is what it is, right? Sage 2.0 is coming, I promise. I know all of you hear me saying that pretty pretty exhaustively, right? But there was a preview there is one division, right, in our department that's currently using Sage 2.0, which is also known as IGX. And right, that rollout will continue to happen, right? But as things stand right now, we have to use Green Sage for all of its sageisms and what it is, right? So importantly, your application has to be submitted electronically via Sage, right? And with that, we expect a written narrative that talks about your agency's mission, your staff capacity, your experience, the diversion principles you're using, your rental assistance supportive services that you have access to, and financial management and grant operations, right? Um, Look, you can use Claude, you can use ChatGPT to do a lot of this stuff, but I'm just letting you know you're really going to want to personalize it because it becomes very glaringly evident, right? When, folks have leveraged AI to write the entirety of their application, right? You want to identify your project type, the project type and service area, the contact information for the executive team and project personnel. And Tina's going to go into a little bit how important it is that you update your executive team and project personnel in Sage, right? One of the pitfalls as we operationalize programs post-award is that in Sage, oftentimes the executive director or the grant writer are kind of ID'd as the main points of contact for communication when in reality, we need to make sure that your fiscal officer, whether that's your CFO or your bookkeeper, right, depending on the level of sophistication of the agency, and your actual programs team, right, is really looped in and making sure that they're identified there, right? If you have questions as to that, we'll connect you with Zach Edward, right, on our Sage team. He could really dive deep and help you out with that, right? Looking for your data collection and management processes, your identification and qualifications of staff that will participate in the project, your consultant listing, if you have any, and the proposed project budget, right? There's a required attachments, which we'll go through, right? Importantly, one of the things that we want to just foot stomp here, right? There was already a couple questions and we received a couple of emails from there, right? Is that if you are not an entity that is in but not of a local government entity, right? Then you can just put NA in the fields for mayor or county letter of support, right? Those are so what that means is if you are a regular 501c3 nonprofit, right? New Jersey Nonprofit Corporation or a CHODO or some of the other organizations that are eligible, right? And you are not affiliated with a county or municipality, you do not need a mayor or county official letter of support, right? You do, however, need a board of trustees letter of support. We'll go into that, right? We do ask you to get a letter of support from the regional or the county continuum of care, right? The letter must include a description of your participation in COC processes and programs to include coordinated entry, right? If you have coordinated entry. And the letter must also certify that their agency has participated in the last round of PIT count activities, right? We are going to be getting more prescriptive as to what constitutes participation. But for the moment, right, we just require in that letter a positive confirmation that there was participation in this year's PIT count, right? Um, the materials that are outlined right in section 13 of the RFP document, right? Those should be uploaded in a third-party agreement subsection of the as a combined PDF. Tina's going to go through where you should upload those, right? But that's really where we're looking for agent experience with collateral data, resource listing, MOUs, MOAs with partnership, affirmation of housing first principles, and your a person with lived experience, inclusion, and activities, right? That's also where we're looking for your process map, right, of the project, understanding that what is the consumer journey from initial client contact through discharge follow-up. And we also want to make sure that you also have a baseline marketing plan with that is essentially a very bare bones slide deck or PowerPoint of how you're going to socialize that you have this program to your partners, right? And lastly, with that, an executed cover page, right? So importantly, right, applications that are missing this, we will give you 5 days to cure them, right? And we will be placing your application in modifications to do so, right? If you submit them, right? Particularly, right, if you do not have your bylaws submitted, right? If you do not have your articles of incorporation, your staff resumes, SAM registration, you complete all certification sheets, and that all the other attachments are sending, right? Importantly, audits, right? Audit does not necessarily mean right independent cash audit. If your organization might not meet the threshold for that, meaning that right you just provide a yellow book or the equivalent financial inspection of your organizational's accounts that was approved by your board treasurer, right? So for some folks, what that means is it is even you do not have the revenue to even meet the yellow book threshold, and that's all right, right? But we want to see and look at, right, and make sure, right, that you are good fiscal stewards and that you will continue to be good fiscal stewards of the state funds, right? The rubrics changed a little bit, right? So 25 points value for Section-1, right? We're looking for mission alignment, right? Years of experience in homelessness services, experience providing rental assistance and supportive services, right? We're looking for the type of rental assistance provided, and then also to the proposed approach, right? We're not really super prescriptive on how you're delivering diversion services, right? That will likely change as we move into the second year of this particular opportunity, but that'll be an ongoing co-created conversation, right? That is the majority and lion's share of your points is how you're actually going to do this. What does that look like? How you're going to engage? The next, right, your commitment to best practices is worth 25 points, right? And we really are deeply looking for kind of not only what are, not only established baseline best practices throughout the sector, but right, that you're clearly articulating those. And it's not just an agency blanket statement, but it's how you are operationalizing them throughout the entirety of the program, right? Lastly, right, the section 4 of the rubric is whether you meet the threshold criteria, right? So if you are missing your bylaws or articles of incorporation for whatever reason, that you were notified of that deficiency, but then you sent them to us, and we acknowledge receipt, right? That makes the application eligible, right? Lastly, right, is a bonus, right? So if you commit to 72-hour payment delivery at a minimum, right? And this should be affirmed by a letter signed by your board committing to the program, right? That the organization commits to delivery, right? A delivery time of no more than 72 hours post-approval of any type of financial assistance, meaning that you have a credit card, you have the ability to execute checks, right, within 24 hours, something like that, right, in order to deliver assistance, right? That's what gets you into the bonus point category, right? So there's a regular flavor of training requirements that we offer, right? We will be partnering with our friends at the Camden Coalition and their cohorts to go and kind of standardize and also end up promulgating all of these trainings, right? A little bit more to come on that probably next month. Right. And then there's the performance expectations, right? So our expectation, and one of the things that we really want to kind of foot stomp is that we expect maintenance of 95% data quality in awards, right? And that to include discharge destination and outcome capture. One of the most challenging things about this program is having it continually to be funded right through the legislature, particularly in what is a very challenging budget environment. And just like I know many of you hear this, refrain ad nauseum from the majority of whether it's your COC executive board or other agencies or other entities with oversight is if there has ever been a time where we actually need clarity in your data to show the extent, right, of the need that all of you are facing and all of you are seeing right now, what gets us to substantiate that need is HMIS data, is program performance data, right? So very much, while that's sometimes in some agencies that's an afterthought, it cannot be an afterthought with the diversion program, right? As far as reporting and monitoring requirements, right, there's the expectation that you attend monthly peer-to-peer meetings, right, held via Teams, quarterly leadership meetings held via Teams, quarterly reporting via Sage, right? Importantly, you can bill, right? I'm just going to put this out there. You can bill as rapidly as much as you need. If you want to send us 20 FSRs to go and process, we will go ahead and facilitate that payment to do so. One of the things that we are doing with this program is we are changing the advance limitations, right? We are changing the advance limitations up to 90% of total grant, right? The understanding that to be the case, right? We will not do an advance past the initial 35% if an organization is delinquent in the submission of its financial status reports via Sage, right? And there's also the expectation, right, that your diversion caseworker, right, is recording encounter and case note data no later than 24 hours post encounter and awards. Right. So as far as deadlines, our application submission deadline is 11:59 on the 2nd of June, right? And again, this proposal must be successfully submitted in Sage to include all attachments. The date on which applicants should be notified if they were selected, right, is 6/15. Importantly, right, we are in a very firm deadline and timeline with this, right? Some of this uses existing state fiscal year funds that die, so this is going to be one of the quickest turnarounds we have, right, for a contract award process. Right, so we're very much committed to actually sticking not only to these deadlines, but also to getting this program up and running as rapidly as possible. Most importantly, because for many of the existing grantees who are on this call, right, you are either out of funds or you are quickly approaching that. The term of the grant, right, will be 6/15/2025 to 6/14/2026. Again, the grant term will be a minimum of 1 year, pending execution of contract. Similarly, right, in the final quarter of the homelessness diversion program, we will be going and we will be doing a comprehensive end of year program evaluation. If your organization passes that evaluation, right, we will be amending the contract, and based upon availability of funding through the state budget, which obviously we don't know what it is until July 1, right? We will be adding additional funds for the continuance of the program for a minimum additional continuance of 1 year, should you be selected, right? Importantly, the term in Sage will be adjusted upon the award of contract, right? We know what it shows in Sage is a little bit different than what it shows on the RFP, right? Again, we're going to get a little fungible with those dates, but it is the expectations that you will have a minimum of 1 year of service throughout this contract term. Right, and now we're going to go ahead and move into Sage training. I'm going to hand it over to Tina.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this homelessness diversion TA session. So when you go onto Sage to submit your application, there are a few things that we want to double check, okay? So first, we want you to ensure that your agency information is updated. It has an expiration date. That expiration date is firm. So if you do not go into Sage and update it, Sage does not assume that there are no changes. It will just not allow you to continue on in a process. Okay, so you must update your agency information. Also, verify that your audit has not expired, and if it has, please submit that audit within 10 days of your application submission. Next slide. Just to repeat myself, if your agency information isn't updated or the audit is past due, Sage will not allow you to submit your application, and it's a lot of work. Also ensure that appropriate staff, to Michael's point earlier, are listed in the email contacts with the proper access level. Sage sends notifications, and in order to receive those notifications, your email address must be in Sage. Staff who complete Sage tasks such as the FSR and your quarterly reporting narrative, they too should be in Sage and have access. Please update your board member list, ensure that is current. If your board is out of compliance or if a member has been inactive for greater than 120 days, we are unable to execute a contract and make reimbursement payments. Ensure that your board is in compliance and your board listing is current in Sage. Verify that your vendor number is correct. If you wish payment via ACH, ensure that bank account information is updated in New Jersey Start. All of this is crucial to the application and should you be awarded the grant process. Next slide. Remember, if your vendor number is not correct, payment will be forwarded to the address currently in the system. So your bank information, if that will be an ACH, but also your address should be current in the system. And if it's not, you may not receive payment if awarded a contract. Is your New Jersey Charities registration and mailing information correct? If your charity's registration is not current, we are unable to make payment to you if you're awarded a contract. That includes your advance. Next slide. Pay attention to areas of the application often overlooked, but crucial to the process, your resolution. A signed resolution, which is the Schedule I, with a seal or notary stamp, is the only acceptable resolution allowed. Do not remove or add language. The resolution cannot be submitted as a JPEG. It must be a PDF or Word document. DCA cannot enter a contract without the required DCA resolution. Areas of the application, again, that are overlooked, their certification sheets. Michael spoke about this earlier, the debarment and suspensions, which is what your Schedule A. The template is in Sage. Lobbying is your Schedule. I said Schedule A, Schedule G. Lobbying is Schedule H. Your application cover page, the template 2, is in Sage. Please ensure that all of these are completed, signed, and submitted in Sage. Pay attention to your service areas, all in region, right? So the applicant must have a designated site within the service area to meet with households as needed. List of other sources of funding, such as federal government, state, local government, private foundation, or third-party payer. Your Schedule A's. There's a lot of detail in these Schedule A's, so the percent of hours worked, ensure that it is equal to the percentage of the salary you are requesting from the state. The total dollar amounts listed in the personnel equals the staff time dollar amounts listed in the budget. Ensure that all application components. So this is your project objective, scope of service, your narrative, your agency capacity, and budget. Please ensure that all of these are in alignment with the RFP and correspond with one another. If you say you have 2 staff working, you should have 2 staff in your budget. There should not be just one budget line item for staff. We need a budget line item for everyone working on this project. All applicants will be first reviewed to determine responsiveness, and non-responsive applicants will be rejected without evaluation. The state may also reject any application that is incomplete or where there are significant inconsistencies or inaccuracies. And this is what Sage looks like when you hop in there. So we are going to start where it's circled here. It says view applicant information. That's where you start. To find your current list of board members, you go to the link where it says view applicant information. It'll pop up these tabs for you where it says agency information service areas board of directors and high risk. You want to go to board of directors to update your board membership and your agency information, right? Ensure that all of this is current and has not expired. Remember, anything with an expiration date should be updated, or you are going to run into issues if awarded a grant. This is how you update your board list. You select the board member, and then you can edit that board member's information. Please do not change their appointment date. Please keep their original start date. And then you complete the left side of the application in sequence. You will start with the program components, service areas, program description, objectives, scope of services. Keep in mind, all items must align with the RFP. Please list each program component separately. Use the program name, not the agency providing the service. Example here, Union County R&S Outreach Program. If you need to edit or delete a program component, but have already added budget money to the component, you need to zero out the budget item prior to editing or deleting the program component. List only services allowable in the RFP. Also, make sure if you intend to have a program that is in one specific area, not an entire county, indicate the specific area. You may have more than one service area. For your application program description, make sure that your sentence starts with two or four. Use only one sentence. The sentence is taken from the application and transferred directly to the award cover letter. Use first person language such as vulnerable, individual, person, persons, and populations. For your project objectives, this is where you would place that. Please be as thorough as possible and ensure that it aligns with the RFP. Your scope of services is next. Your scope of services should describe what you are doing, such as your operations, your staff's responsibilities, hours, etc. Each agency operates a little differently, so please do not assume that the review team knows what your program will look like. Be as explicit as possible. Really give us a picture of what you're doing. Indicate if you are using a sub-grantee or if you are providing the services directly. And then you would complete the right side of the application. On the right side, you will complete your application statement forms, your application program information, budget information form, certification sheets, and budget overview. And this is what that looks like, okay? And you will start at application statement forms. This is your statement of the board president, a board president form. You can complete this and actually print it out, have it signed, and upload it with your third-party certification sheets. And then we move on to the application program information forms. This is where you will put your project narrative. For reference, you can refer back to the rubric. There are specific items in the rubric that indicates place in project narrative. This is where you would put those items. Same for your agency capacity. There are specific items in the rubric that says place in agency capacity. Please be very descriptive and put them here. And this is an example of what your Schedule A will look like. Again, a Schedule A is required for each and every person paid out of this grant, whether they fall on the admin portion of your budget or the programs portion of your budget. Note the percentage of staff time on this grant must equal the percentage of salary requested. Okay? You might, and give that some thought because when you submit your FSRs, this is what this will be your guiding force. Okay. Schedule Bs are for consultants. So if you're going to have a partner on this project, we absolutely need a Schedule B for them as well. And from there, you move to the application budget information forms. This is where you will list other sources of funding related to this application. So provide all information of other funders the agency have for programs where you are utilizing the diversion funds. And we'll conclude with certification sheets. So please respond to each of the statements according to your agency's position. If your agency is new to OHP, update your agency's 2 prior audits. I want to say the RFP says 3. Scanned as one document. For number 6 and click yes. Be sure that your board listing is correct and up to date when you certify number 7. Slide. The following uploads are required for your application. We spoke about this earlier. Your Schedule G for debarment, Schedule H for lobbying. Schedule I is the resolution. Again, you need that signed and notarized. Your IRS determination letter, if it's a nonprofit, your organization chart, your application cover page, your board meeting schedule for the upcoming year.
And just so folks know, if you click those green hyperlinks, that's how you download the PDFs in order for that's where those standardized forms are.
Yes. Thank you, Michael. Partnership listing and other documents with no designated upload link. So on a prior page, the prior slide, there were quite a few links. We asked for more documentation than that. So we're asking that you upload those documents into your third-party certification links there. There are only 2 links there, right? So you're going to have to combine several documents into one document and then upload it here to your certification sheets. So there are only 2. I would probably do this last, right? You know how many you have, bunch them into 2 sections, scan them in, and then upload them into the links there. Excuse me. Form 990, all non-government grantees must provide the most recently filed Form 990 annual tax filing with the IRS, whether that's a 990, 990EZ, or 990N. And this is what the link for the resolution looks like. Applicants must download the form, complete, sign, and then upload the form where it says choose file. Applicants may not substitute the resolution. This is what the resolution looks like when you download it. You may have the resolution signed the usual way, scan and upload. Auto pen signatures are acceptable. Notarization is not needed if the board secretary or an attorney can sign. If neither can sign, then a notary signature would be required. The DCA resolution must be signed and submitted. No substitutions allowed. DCA cannot enter a contract without a signed and submitted DCA resolution uploaded into Sage. They sometimes come late because we understand that boards meet at different times that may not be in alignment with the deadline for this, but we're asking that if you can, you get those in. And budget overview. You will receive a message if you do not complete the program components and budget pages on the left side of the application menu screen first. So it's important to go down the left side of your application menu screen first, and then the right side of your application menu. Budget information, administrative costs may not be more than 10% of the total allocation. Any cost labeled as administrative, including program line items, will be calculated as administrative costs and returned to the applicant under program line. Okay, so administrative costs must be grouped under administrative cost portion in your budget, and your program costs must be under the program portion of your budget. Place all the administrative costs there. Salaries allocated in personnel sections must equal the percent of funding under administrative costs. Do not bundle expenses. If you have 3 staff for administrative costs, we need 3 line items for salaries. If you have 1 diversion specialist, then only 1. Okay?
And importantly,
The
too,
only thing
on
that's
that.
really,
Oh, sure, Chanel.
yes,
Go ahead. Yeah. So what I
go
was
ahead.
also going to say is, for those of you I are looking at in the budget of where to actually place your flex funds, right? So that budget line for you is going to be program operating cost other, right? Don't worry if you place it in the wrong place. Part of what we will be doing is because we will actually, as we work through your budget, right? One of the things in the modification process is, hey, if you just erroneously put it someplace or something like that, right? That's not going to be disqualifying, right? What's going to be disqualifying if there's some other way of program design, or if there's anything that we enumerated and talked about a little bit earlier. Make sense?
Thank you. And remember that the state may reject any application that is incomplete. Yep. So ensure that there is parallelism, that your components, your objectives, and budget all coincide and align with one another and with the RFP. Is it easy to identify each of its counterparts? Are your objectives and scope of services a cohesive narrative that is applicable to this RFP? Not merely a historical summary or name dropping, but a demonstration of the applicant's capacity to undergo the intent and spirit of this RFP. Is your budget within the guidance stated in the RFP? And the disclaimer that the state may reject any application for missing or incomplete parts of your application. Contractual requirements are insurance fidelity bonding audits. Initial advancements are 35%. If an agency is in debt offset with the federal government, DCA is unable to pay in advance. Billing reimbursements are preceded upon receipt of an allowable expenditure upload in the quarterly FSR. FSRs are only approved after the narrative is approved and all required documentation is uploaded in the FSR is accurate. All FSRs and narrative data must be current and coincide with awards the HEMIS system. No reimbursements will be issued until all are current and mirror one another. To Michael's point earlier, HEMIS is where we get our data from, and with the current budget environment we certainly need that to be timely and accurate. Quarterly reporting is based on the state fiscal year, July 1st through June 30th, regardless of when your contract begins, October or January. Quarterly reporting periods will sync up with the award of the grant. If your application is returned for modifications, place a comment in the comment section. Once you have completed the modification, please remember to click the resubmit application button once modifications have been completed.
All right, folks. So I know we're over a little bit. Shahil has been to keep the track of the questions, right? I'm just going to go ahead and go through them, right? If that works out, please make sure you add any additional questions now. So from Nicole Cody, right, for what you were saying, we cannot serve a specific population for this grant, right? So if you are serving youth or you're a domestic violence agency only, right, you're going to have to either partner with someone or expand your mission to serve the entirety of folks, right, in your region that would be eligible for this program, right? We're more than happy to have a lead agency, right, that is a domestic violence agency or that is a youth serving agency, right? But one of the things that we really want, we're in order for the application to be successful, we're going to need you to partner with additional entities. You service the entirety, right, of the population there. So Bobbin, is the breakdown of client assistance prescriptive? No, right? So if you don't have to use 5,000, right? You are more than welcome to zero that out if you want and use flex funds for the entirety of it if that's what you so choose, right? Um, Similarly, is the RFP geared more towards individuals whose mission focuses on those experiencing or those at risk in homelessness? I would say, importantly, right, is that right, we're looking for both, right? Particularly folks that are going to be easily right diverted, right? If you look in the RFP itself, we have a more expansive definition of risk of homelessness and those folks experiencing homelessness. A good example is if you have an individual that's couch surfing that really just needs assistance with a security deposit and 3 months of rent going forward, and they're otherwise ineligible for any other program because that couch surfing doesn't meet HUD category 1, yeah, you can use that to go house that person or to effectuate that housing. What if a family is moving into a unit but doesn't have any furniture, right? You could, if you could, if that furniture, importantly, so with Pastor Trap here, if that family would not be eligible, right, for the housing supports program for the move-in supports, right, because buying new furniture is an eligible cost category through the New Jersey Family Care Housing Supports Program. If they are otherwise ineligible for that, right, then you could use the diversion funding for that. Um, believe Colleen, we kind of went through there, right? There is flexibility, right, within that. If you have more, nuanced questions on that, we can go ahead and talk about it. From Siobhan, right? Should the executive team information be specific to the project or the entire organization, right? So we're looking for who is going to own, right, day-to-day operations over the program at the director level, but then we're also looking for the entirety of the organization. So your CEO, president, ED, whatever that equivalent is, and the cabinet level staff. Right. If the board resolution, so for Owen, if the board of resolution or COC letter hasn't been received yet, can those be forwarded? Yes, you can upload a placeholder for that. We know that some continuums and based upon the reduced response time we have for this, right, those timelines aren't necessarily lining up. You can submit a placeholder to that. Again, that should be an insert into that combined PDF that you upload into the third-party agreements section. Can you affirm where the attachment listed should be uploaded, right? So that's those third-party agreements. There's the two drop boxes there that say click files. They have a 20 megabyte limit each, right? For some organizations new to DCA and OHP, right? We're asking for quite a bit from you. You will have to upload reduced size PDFs. One of the things, if you do encounter issues with that, please do not wait until 11:59. To figure it out, right? We want to make sure that if we have to troubleshoot, if we have to extend you a state Dropbox through Move It, that we can go and look through, right? And then can you confirm with the process map again? Again, anything that there's not a designated upload spot, create a combined PDF and upload it to the third-party agreements, right? So Jennifer, yes, we are open to DV agencies using so, right? We'd have to go through and we'd have to, again, for the other populations that we would expect you to serve, right? If it wasn't availability for via mission or other delivery services, right? You're probably looking at a partnership for that. Colleen's asking, how does DCA plan to measure post-discharge performance outcomes, right? So importantly, right? Are providers required to follow up with diversion recipients at 3 and 6 months post, right? So we ask that you maintain contact information with them, right? So we're not saying that there needs to be a case management relationship, but we are asking you to engage with and affirm and then to place a case note in. And simultaneously, one of the things that we look in the back end is given our access and HMIS and some other systems throughout the state, we look to see if that individual was actually successfully diverted or if they popped up somewhere else in the system or through a different provider or something like that. And that lets us triangulate around being able to really see, the impact of diversion from that. Importantly, If an individual has gone and then say the diversion was not successful, and then they ended up returning to homelessness, or right that recidivism ended up in a rapid rehousing program that they would access or something like that 8 months down the road, right? We don't hold that against the provider, right? Matt Isaac asked, do the admin costs need to be itemized or can they be presented as one indirect line item? All right, please look at the admin costs that are available in the prescribed buckets in Sage, right? They're pretty expansive. So to the extent that you can get really granular on that, it is very much appreciated, right? And then is there a certain percentage of the award that must use for flexible funds, right? Again, we are not prescriptive on the limit of that. We would like you to maximize to the most possible. In doing so, simultaneously, right, for those of you that are providing pre-tenancy services or tenancy support services through the Medicaid Housing Supports Program, you might have the entirety of your program actually just be flex funding, right, with some admin to be able to cut checks. And your staff that you hire or enabling through that might be able to serve and facilitate that, right? Are you required to include more than one objective in Sage? No, right? Question is salary matching from Bobbin. What if we pay a salary that is higher than an expected amount, but the staff person is 100% dedicated to the project? I don't want to take too much away from direct client assistance line. That's more than okay, Bobbin, right? Right, just have the 100% of the salary on the budget and in your Schedule A for personnel. Make sure that the ceiling, right, that is available that you will be paying for state for 100% of those dollars is listed there, and then in the notes section list what the salary you intend to hire at is for. Dawn Metzger asked, where does the 990 need to be uploaded? Right, yes, right, it does, and we would like you to upload it in the third-party agreement section, right? So Pastor Trappier, you're saying your auditor has not completed your audit, but you do have end of year P&L, right? Hey, that's fine, right? So Pastor Trappier, go ahead and give us that P&L, and then we will work through the audit when you have it. Richard Lilly, is there a budget template available, right? Is the budget overview in Sage also required, right? So the budget overview is, we could submit an example budget from an organization for a successful application as an example, not to be prescriptive about what your budget could look like, but along as an additional material just to help folks fill out this application. So Iris Fernandez was asking, if your organization currently operates and maintains a physical presence in Bergen County, but we're capable of providing Hudson and Passaic without a physical location in there, are you still qualified to apply? Yes, but again, we will need you to demonstrate how you are going to physically meet with households in Hudson and Passaic County, right? So whether that means that you end up renting a space or that you have a mobile case manager, right, that is leveraging their own transportation, right, to go and meet with households where they're at as necessary, right? That is an option as well. Jennifer Jones asks, where do you upload the 990? Again, in third-party agreements, right? Is there an expectation around the percentage allocated direct assistance versus personnel? No, there's not an expectation at this time, right? Dawn's asking, do you have direct assistance? Can you have direct assistance for $10,000 and what is required for this purchase if you get gift cards to Walmart and ShopRite? So Dawn, importantly, that is a flex fund spend that you're purchasing, not a direct client assistance. A direct client assistance spend follows the state statutory definition, which is a direct cash or cash equivalent payment to an individual, meaning that it would be a gift card. It would not be a ShopRite gift card for $100 is a gift card for food. It is not direct client assistance. That's a spend for flex funding. Direct client assistance spend that has a ceiling of $50 is a Visa gift card or $50 or a check for $50 to the individual, right? Of cash that has no restrictions or is not tied to a direct item, right? Do we follow the application guidelines that differ from the Sage application? Do you upload everything as attachment, right? So importantly, for Jennifer Jones, if you do not see a bucket or a place to upload it in Sage, right, just go ahead and toss it into that combined PDF and put it in the third-party agreements. Will this recording be sent out? Yes, right. We will be uploading to YouTube no later than Monday. Hopefully we actually have it up by Friday, but our comms team is doing a couple different things right now. And then Dawn saying, can we use current staff to run the grant, or is it expected to hire YouTube staff? So Dawn, importantly, right, the expectation is that you have a full-time equivalent staff person that can facilitate this program, right? Right. With that, right, we expect that you have somebody that is working between 30 to 40 hour 32 to 40 hours a week on homelessness diversion only, right? And so if that means that, right, that you have a different grant paying for somebody, or you have a different mechanism to go and pay for somebody, we expect 32 to 40 hours of work being able to be tied to that, right? One of the things and where we see really challenges with programs that are not successful is when um, agencies have, say, a rapid rehousing case manager that they're being paid through an ESG grant or a COC grant, and then diversion funds is something that they can do. We see a rapid decline in the ability of that individual to be able to provide diversion services, because the expectation is that they're doing case management with the rapid rehousing clients. Um, let's see. Bob's asking where the YouTube link is, right? So it's the Department of Community Affairs YouTube site. We will send out the link as soon as it's live to the actual recording. And then Sarah's asking, how should diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and access section in the scoring rubric be included in the application? Should there be separate addenda or tied into the required pieces of the RFP, right? So importantly, right, we really like you to highlight to the extent that you can throughout it. But if there is, particularly the main section on that, right, really is your person's lived experience and consumer feedback sections, which have itemized. And will you be sending out a resolution for housing first? Yes, we will, Kim. All right. Being that we are a little bit over time, I hope that's it. We'll give an alibi for any additional questions. Shahilda, did I miss any, or did I get them all?
I think you got them all. I was trying to mark them off as you answered.
All
So,
right, sounds good. All right, folks. Again, we'll be sending all the items out that we sent out a little bit later today, right? If you are joining us this afternoon for HPRP2, right? Some of the SAGE information will be the same, a little bit different because the SAGE application for HPRT or HPRP2 is substantively different um, than the diversion shell. So please make sure you stick around for that if that's the case. If not, hope everybody has a great day. All right, take care, everybody.
okay.